This is going to be uncomfortable, even discouraging initially, but extremely important, even crucial for your long-term journey, and therefore helpful, is the fact that most of the best books ever written were not really written for you. And when I talk about the best books in this context, I'm talking about books on human potential and human growth, books on actualizing your potential, books on understanding yourself, psychology and philosophy books intended to make you into a greater version of yourself. In a way, they were not written for you. What do I mean by this? Here I have a collection of some of the greatest books from that category that I just described. And almost every single one of those books was written before social media was created, before the smartphone was invented. I mean, in my case, in my collection, almost all of these books were written before the age of internet. But even more important than the creation of internet is the point of creation of the smartphone and social media, because it's at that point where we see the massive spike in distractibility of human beings, massive drop in mental health because of what, once again, smartphones and social media brought to the daily life of humans. Now, what does this have to do with the best books that were written before the invention of smartphone and social media not being written for you? Well, unfortunately, Abraham Maslow, Rollo May, Carl Jung, let me not take out his book because everything is going to fall out, Erich Fromm, Robert Moore, a great Jungian psychologist, a lot of the writers, Alfred Adler, even Freud, let's mention him, the popular hate of Freud is unjustified in a large way. All of them wrote for humans that lived completely different lives, even though it wasn't so long ago. Also, we have to acknowledge that in a way, all of these thinkers massively predicted certain aspects of psychological, emotional, and spiritual development of our generation. That's why we remember them, that's why we look back at their works, because they are still so relevant. Rollo May, in his existential psychology, when you're reading him, it's as if he's reading today. Apart from the extremely important factor that is our distractibility and our lack of capacity. When I talk about our, I'm talking about general state of the human population today. Our lack of capacity to focus on the task at hand and get basic things done in our lives. So once again, Abraham Maslow, Rollo May, by now a lot of you know those are some of my favorites. Carl Jung, Alfred Adler, Erich Fromm. So many times, in so many moments while you're reading them, you think this was like written in the 2025, 2024, doesn't matter, in 2020s. It's as if it was written for the human of the modern age. When it comes to certain cultural shifts, when it comes to our, again, psychological, emotional, spiritual development, when it comes to how we relate to each other, how we relate to the world. And yes, almost all of them did in some way predict or expect that we would have problems with the development and rapid development of technology. So yes, they did predict many of the things in terms of where we are headed and where we would be headed as society. But they were not able, and we cannot blame them, that they were not able to predict the level of brain rot. We cannot blame them that they were not able to predict that a massively ambitious and hard-working human in 2025 is going to be struggling to read for 5 minutes without being distracted. Now let's reflect on, for example, Carl Jung. Carl Jung talked to, worked with, wrote for, and gave seminars to people who, even though they were struggling, were living by our standards today very well-ordered lives. The same goes for almost all of these psychologists that gave us some of the greatest insights into our nature. So why do I say most of the best books weren't really written for you? Again, uncomfortable realization that you might not be at a position, you might not be at the right place to attack or engage in the project of learning everything that's available to you to learn about the human nature, about yourself, about actualizing of your potential. This is not, again, this is not to on purpose discourage you. This is not to try to cut off your wings, far from it. If you watch my videos, you know that I'm trying to do the opposite. It's to tell you that for better or worse, the starting point of the self-actualization journey, individuation journey, personal growth journey, hero journey of the modern human being, the starting point is, for better or worse, reclaiming your attention. It's becoming able to focus on the task at hand, to focus on the book at hand, to focus on the journaling prompt at hand for longer than 5 or 10 minutes without being distracted. The starting point of the modern hero journey, self-actualization journey, personal growth journey, self-discovery journey, the starting point is not being like a small ship without a sailor, without anyone rowing it, carried by the waves of digital distraction, in a stormy ocean of constant external stimuli. The starting point of the modern journey is reclaiming some level of control over the flow of your attention. And when you reclaim the flow over your attention, you reclaim the flow, control of the flow of your energy and time and effort and life. So that's why I say these best books, in a way, were not written for you, because for a lot of us, our default state as human beings participating in the digital age, our default state is not being ready to take on this project. And I know this as someone who's been writing for soon to be 6 years every single day and sharing my writing online. I never wanted to talk about focus and attention. That was never my plan. However, when I realized that I'm receiving dozens of messages of people saying, your advice is great, you're inspirational, you're encouraging, you're giving me hope, but every single one of those messages would contain, but I'm just struggling to get things done in my day because I'm so distracted. Well, when Rollo May talks about possibility of transforming yourself by transforming, that is changing the structure of your inner tensions, he is hoping that you don't have trouble focusing for about 5 minutes at a time. Again, massive respect to him, how he predicted so many of the problems that we are facing today. Immense insights, so ahead of his time. But we cannot blame him that he wrote hoping that humans of the future would not have 10-second attention span. Maslow, talking about the future of education, unfortunately, even though in Further Reaches of Human Nature he talks so much about technology, I mean so much, decent amount of talk about technology and how we have to be careful, especially at the beginning of the book. He talks about we cannot just let technology develop without talking about moral values. Moral values. Apparently something that we don't talk about today. The techno billionaires, I'm not sure if moral values are really on their mind when they're discussing in which direction to move the development of AI. However, even though, again, extremely important insights ahead of his time, still we cannot blame him for not predicting that he would be not he would be dealing, that his book would get into the hands of humans who are struggling to focus for 5 minutes at a time, 3 minutes at a time, or even minutes at a time without getting distracted. Carl Jung, Erich Fromm, Jungian analysts. The only book that I have here, actually the only book that I have that was written after the creation of social media and smartphone is Stolen Focus by Jonah Harry. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it correctly. That should tell you something. I love reading. I am always researching how to complete my project of education so that I can impact the world in a positive way. And there is a reason why the only book that I have here that's from our age is precisely about what's happening with us and to us because of how our society is impacted by digital distraction. As I said at the beginning of the video, uncomfortable, initially discouraging, but crucial to understand that these writers, even though they were writing for future generations, still weren't pessimistic enough. One person that I don't have here, Joseph Campbell hoped that the first step on your hero journey would not have to be, on your hero journey would not have to be, or he wasn't even able to conceptualize the idea of a 10-second attention span. Not to mention Nietzsche and Kierkegaard and other thinkers whose books I don't have here in physical form but have immensely impacted me. They were writing for, especially Nietzsche. Nietzsche was writing for people, he even said it explicitly. I'm writing for the next 200 years. That's why he is, without a doubt, one of the greatest minds that ever lived. But even he didn't predict the 10-second attention span. Even he didn't predict that maybe I say, please read The Courage to Create, and it's going to impact your life in an immensely positive way. They were not able to predict that you're going to buy this book and you're going to sit and start reading it, and then after 20 seconds you're going to want to check your notifications. And then maybe you fall into a 5, 10, 15 minute doom scrolling spiral. Then you snap out of it and then you continue reading, and then after 3 minutes, let me check if I got any messages. Or let me swipe a little bit on Bumble or Tinder. They were not able to predict that. You know, the meme, human horrors beyond my comprehension. Yeah, again, uncomfortable to admit, but it's the reality. Human horrors beyond the comprehension even of greatest minds of the last couple of hundreds of years. Even they didn't predict the level of degradation of the human being. Even they were not able to predict the level of a degradation of human capacity to engage in life, to get simple things done. So when I say these books were not necessarily written for you, or in a way were not written for you, is not to discourage you from tackling on this project, but to add the foundation or the first step of the project, which has to be inserted, because you will not get that from any of these books. You will not get that the first step, this one is in my language, so maybe you will not recognize it, it's about Heidegger. None of these books say, your first step is to reclaim your attention, your first step is to learn how not to scroll 3 hours per day. That's not in these books. One book that came the closest maybe to predicting it is Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. That's why, even though, let's say, the style of reading is not my favorite, it's undoubtedly one of the most important books in the recent couple of decades. One of the most important books written. And maybe as time goes on, maybe it will keep climbing on the list of climbing on the list even more expanded list, not in the last couple of decades, maybe in the last 100 or 200 years. This book is going to keep climbing because it talks about the importance of attention for the quality of one's life. Let's give you at least something practical. If in the last video, and I urge you to watch my last video, for a more philosophical approach regarding engaging in your journey and handling the ups and downs of your journey and reconnecting to your journey, if the last video was about more philosophical and broader perspective approach, this one is about the less glamorous, more boring, but equally, if not more necessary aspect, and that's the very modern aspect of your journey, which is reclaiming your attention. So let's start with this. Set at least 5 alarms, at least 5 alarms for either random times throughout the day or times throughout the day where you can afford to be distracted. So if you actually have a habit of deep work sessions, or you work at a job where you definitely cannot be distracted or disturbed, then avoid setting alarms at those times. Set 5 alarms, maybe even more. I would suggest as many as you objectively can, but for them to have 40 to 60 minutes apart from each other. And every time that alarm goes off, do it, by the way, not for just one day, do it for at least a week. And then every time the alarm goes off, you stop whatever you were doing, you take 10 seconds for some self-awareness, and then you write down in your phone notes, you have a prepared file, and you write down where was your attention, and, extremely important, were you the one who directed your attention there? So sometimes the point of this is developing the awareness of how your attention is being invested and how often you are the one investing it versus how often your attention is being hijacked. Because the starting point of every journey is awareness of the problem, awareness of the extent or the level of the problem. And then even the awareness without any other practical solutions contributes to a positive change, because the more aware you are of an unhealthy, unconstructive behavior, the greater resistance there is from engaging in that behavior, the greater your capacity to pull back from engaging in that unconstructive or unhealthy behavior. So sometimes the alarm is going to snap you out of a doom scrolling binge. Sometimes the alarm is going to catch you walking and actually being present, and you're going to write down, okay, I was on a walk, I was thinking of, let's say, I was thinking of what I want to prepare later for lunch, and I was following that train of thought intentionally. Or maybe you're going to say, I was on a walk and I was observing the trees. Or maybe the alarm is going to go off when you're training, but you notice that when alarm went off, you weren't thinking about the workout itself, you were thinking about an argument that you had with your friend or partner the day ago. Or maybe you're supposed to be working out and you're at the gym, but you're scrolling, and alarm snaps you out of it once again. So the alarms are going to help you identify how often you are the one investing and directing your attention, and how often your attention is just being pulled in different directions without you having any say in it. There are dozens and dozens of other practices and exercises to reclaim your attention, but this is the fundamental one. I know, because it's been years now that I've been researching, studying, implementing this on myself, working with people directly. So I know that this is where you have to start. It's only then that you can take other steps to reclaim your attention, and then only then to strengthen your attention and strengthen your skill and muscle of focus or focusing. Do this, you're going to thank me. You're going to thank me massively, and I don't say this lightly. I know how helpful this is going to be. One last thing. Please don't be discouraged when I say that these books were in a way not written for you. This is not to criticize you. This is not to say that you will never get to the point, or that it's going to take years for you to get to the point where you can take on these books. And it's not about you taking on these books. look at this. It's not about you taking on these books. You can maybe read them at your own pace, or you can definitely read them at your own pace. It's about, are you actually going to, while reading them, not after, while reading them, if you're going to engage in your life. If you're going to engage in your life and take on the challenges and tasks and projects of your life. Are you going to have the capacity to do so? Or are you going to read, get distracted, and then fail to engage in the projects, challenges, and tasks of your life, also because of that distraction? So this is not discouragement, this is to insert the new first step of self-actualization, individuation, hero journey, to insert the first step that these great thinkers simply were not able to predict with the precision that we need. Insert that first step, and then you are on your way to actually live out your journey with the help of these great thinkers who wanted you to engage in your journey. They didn't want you to be a bookworm. Don't aim to read all of this, or if you come across any other reading list. That's a separate story. I can make a separate video on this. Carl Jung would want you to live out your journey. Carl Jung wouldn't want you to read all of his works. I'm reading every single thing that Rollo May ever wrote and every single thing that Abraham Maslow ever wrote, because it's my mission to continue their work and insert these steps that they were not able to predict. So I'm not reading for the sake of reading. It's part of my journey. And once I'm complete with certain parts of my journey, trust me, I'm not going to spend 3, 4, 5 hours per day reading. And to every single human that I care about, I want you to read, but I don't want you to mistake reading for living out your journey. So maybe maybe that needs to be a separate video to really remind you of the fact that you need to live out your journey and not plan it and study it through reading. But I think it's useful in the greater context of this video as well. So yeah, that's it, friends. I know it's uncomfortable, I know it's discouraging, but as I said, it's important and even crucial for your long-term journey. I'm really hoping you found this message overall helpful, and the practical step I'm hoping the practical step isn't too intimidating or too overwhelming. Let me know in the comments how this sounded. Let me know in the comments if you will engage in the exercise that I proposed. By the way, it's called attention inventory. After a couple of days of the exercise, you can come back to this video and drop me in the comments your experience from journaling, that is writing down your insights from different times the alarm goes off, and writing down your state of attention, and whether you were the one who invested it or directed it or not. And that's it. We are building this journey of personal growth and development step by step, and I am committed, as much as I'm committed to breathing and getting up tomorrow morning, I'm equally committed to delivering value to you and contributing to your journey, because that's my mission. Thank you.